believe that we're living very intense days. Some North American writer wrote a pamphlet that was called The 10 Days That Shocked the World, from John Briggs from New York. I believe that we are living days that are shocking the world without any doubt, and we have to not only live with intensity but try to understand that comprehension is necessary for those who in some way, in the neighborhoods, in the streets, in the municipalities, in the territory, in the local, in the national, or even in these spheres that conjugate the dialogues between states up to this point, as the meeting that is currently happening in Santa Marta, which is the heart of the world. With due respect to the world, this is the heart of the world. The indigenous people, the Arahuacos, the Kogi, say they probably are present here with their organizations, understanding what happens and where are we going, what to do. They said before, the intensity of these days can't make the peoples blind. The people needs to rethink its actions, its own activity, individual activity even, because from here we're not going to leave the same way that we came. And I'm not making reference only to the arrival to this city, but also to these intense days. The world will be different, whether to good or bad. It depends on our own efforts. It depends on the peoples, on humanity. No more. Let's just see what just happened in a kind of games in which one launches oneself to the precipice. We come from the Assembly of the UN in New York. We come from a place where two people felt completely alone in reality. Sir Trump and Netanyahu. Trump a little bit more smarter than Netanyahu, noticed what that meant. Its own NATO built from the times that ended in the Second World War and opened what it is known as the Cold War, the military coalition. NATO thought exclusively in the defense of the people of the North Atlantic, or the power of the capital, as someone here said, which was settling in that geography. Peoples in cold seas decided in its majority to support Palestine in the UN Assembly. That was a moment that is historical, that is very rarely analyzed. We did the math because to us, President Santos put us in a something that is very weird and no one understands, which is a strategical partners of NATO, but we are not allowed to go to the meetings or anything. We just buy the weapons. They are not helping us. We just buy them. It was a lie that they were helping us. We were buying it. It is a lie that there's any free weapons that arrive to this country. We have to buy them. That's simple. But doing the math of the NATO states who were with the politics of Netanyahu or in silence, and who had decided to support, whether it was formally or hypocritically, to the state of Palestine, as it should be called. Well, it turned out that they lost their majority with France and with several countries of Europe that, facing the push of their peoples, decided to change their positions. And that reached the UN Assembly and left in the biggest isolation Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu. And the words resounded, because in an assembly like that, what is sounded is words and more words. But the words, in one way or another, started reaching power and having power, as the peoples say, the words have power, and only a few instants later the crowds, the young people that went in out in the ships to sail the sea to reach Gaza, to take some food, and they were practically in jailed and tortured. Here we have two Colombian, I don't know if they're here, I don't see them in the crowds, but they were taken to the jails. Their names are Luna and Manuela. They're probably somewhere around here. I told them that I was going to give her the cross of Boyacá, and to several Palestinian leaders I want my foreign minister to take notes so there won't come any excuses in parts of my government wherever they say that because there's no medals they can't make the medals as an excuse. And we said Luna Emanuela and the Dr. Sadafi, I don't know how to pronounce his name, who was in his hospital with his white cloth, with many of his patients and his family dead as well, dead by the bombs of Netanyahu, and he decided to stay taking care of those kids that they weren't his, but he felt them as his because his children had been destroyed by the bombs, and he showed humanity what the meaning of dignity is. That must never be forgotten. The last one to leave the hospital with his white cloak to surrender himself, to be taken to torture in the prison of the jails of Israel, to that man and to the journalist of the truth and the artist who makes people laugh, the children laugh on the streets and the rubble of that city. I told them that I would give them the cross of Boyacá to those cities. The foods region they were not allowed to enter, and the reaction was a lot of crowds that went out, and that is why I want to analyze deeply. It was not a simple declaration of governments in a cold communique that no one reads, that no one tells, that doesn't serve any purpose. Right next to the words that were launched by different governance, men and women, almost by the dozens, I would say, in the UN Assembly, and after of the crime against the fleet of freedom in the Mediterranean Sea, that were for the first time the word democracy was born, and there where is the biggest common grave of the planet in the bottom of the sea, with the bodies of Arabs, of immigrants with black skin who try to escape the droughts of their Middle East, of their Africa, of the invasion wars that they do because of petroleum. There they also committed the crime of stopping the fleet, and the world, the humane world, in the governments that were accomplices of the genocide beyond, and others which are more sensitive people, in which their own governments were accomplices of the genocide, because we have been the witness in these intense days of a genocide. There has been many. There is another one at this moment in Sudan, and we have become sensitive to something that might be the indolence of the political power of the capital. If with financial money, with the money which we call the capital, bombs were made through here, the carbon that is the basis of the bombs, it goes through here. This is one of the points that exports the largest amounts of carbon in the world. The train tracks that pass through here doesn't carry human beings, it carries coal to the ships, with the destiny of an industry of the capital, that it is about transforming the atmosphere chemically and ending the life in the planet. intense days that are showing us how the genocides grow, how the barbarian rises at the same time that the chemistry of the carbon in the atmosphere grows as well, produced by a word that resumes it all, which is greed, the greed of power, of capital. Maybe the contradiction that we are seeing today in the bottom of everything is the contradiction between greed and existence.